Monsieur Anber.
Monsieur Cassavant, I'm in the UK and I can't have a cup of tea. Like, how is that possible? I don't understand. How is that? I got water, but I don't have anything to have a cup of tea with. So I'm a little bit disappointed.
Be clear, you don't have anything in the room to make tea, but you could get tea wherever if you need it in the lobby probably, or if you had to go out, of course.
Of course.
But you would think
how much it would charge me. I had a horrific experience in London on my first day here. I don't know if I shared this with you. It's still wrecking my brain. Because my flight arrived early, they changed my flight when I was in Montreal. So I arrived in the UK 4 hours earlier than I was supposed to. So when they brought me to the hotel, my room wasn't ready. So the lady said, listen, I'll do my best to get it for you by 11 o'clock. I said, oh, that's nice of you. That's perfect. I was there at like almost 9. I said, well, that's great. I'll go get something to eat. So I said, is there a place I can have breakfast? She said, yeah, go up the road there. So I went up the road, I sat down, had a nice English breakfast, ordered a cup of tea, had a tea, finished. I said, well, it's still a little early to go back. It's not quite 11 yet. Let me do some more work. And I ordered another cup of tea, had another cup of tea, went and finished it and said, okay, I'm going to go back to the hotel. Can I have the check, please? My bill, my English breakfast, my full English breakfast, which included 3 eggs, toast, beans, the whole bit, came out to £9.90. Okay, that was for the full English breakfast. 2 teas, £8.60. £8.60. That's almost $16 for 2 cups of tea, bro. Do you understand what that means? $16 for 2 cups of tea.
Oh, that's like going to Starbucks, maybe. But at the same time, you work with the heavyweight champion of the world now, Russ. So that's okay. $16 for tea. You're okay with that,
bro? It was £10 for breakfast. It was £9 for tea. My brain's still trying to wrap myself around this. Anyways, that's
all right. Yeah. So thank you again for tuning in. A lot of feedback on last week's show, fresh off the Usyk Joshua matchup. You're still in the UK. Can you explain to people what you're still doing in the UK despite the fight being over a week ago?
Yeah, the fight was over a week ago. Well, it was either fly back to Montreal and then get back on a plane and fly back here to Liverpool. So I decided to stay the week in the UK. Liam Smith is fighting on Saturday, the same night as Wilder Fury. He's fighting Anthony Fowler. And I'm especially in love with this fight because this is a typical old-time Montreal fight. It's 2 local guys, one from the north of Liverpool, one from the south of Liverpool, same city. The place is going to be packed tomorrow. It's sold out in something like 24 hours. So I'm really excited about being in Liam's corner. And, I've been with Liam since he won the world title. And, I worked his corner, unfortunately, against Canelo. And I've been, regular fixture with the team. And I'm looking forward to it. So here in Liverpool, and we'll be in the Madhouse tomorrow at the arena, 20,000 plus people for this fight between Liam Smith and Anthony Fowler.
It's a big local fight. And like you said, there's something about having major local events that people can get behind these fighters locally, which you would used to see here a little bit more in the province, and hopefully that will come back. But there's something about the environment that it's almost as big as a world championship fight many times for these fighters for bragging rights, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the atmosphere is electric, as I witnessed throughout the start of my early career in Montreal, like the local fights really had a special flavor about them, and the audience was often equally packed with supporters of both sides. And it didn't only have to be 2 Montreal guys. It could be Montreal against Toronto, Montreal against Halifax, Montreal against Quebec City. There was that local rivalries is what sells tickets, and that's what the base is for selling tickets. Fighters sell tickets and local fights sell more tickets. And I hope we come back to that. I wish people would understand the concept of conquering your own province, conquering your own state, conquering your own place, your own city before you venture out. One of the greatest injustices in boxing was that Amir Khan and Kell Brook never fought when they were in their prime.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's
well,
sad.
There's many, right? So when you look back, you have a whole bunch of fights that should have happened or that did happen, but way past the date that it would have been when the matchup was at its best.
Correct.
So now Smith Fowler will be fighting in the UK probably in the evening, but which means you should have enough time to then tune into the Fury Wilder trilogy if you wanted to, correct?
Well, if it's going to be available, I don't know what
Yeah.
the distribution rights are in the UK. And if I did my math correctly, if Fury and Wilder walk in at 9 p.m. Vegas time, that's going to be 5 a.m. here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm
Which means
not-
usually you're sleeping at that time. That's a good point.
That's
So you'll wake up and be able to maybe catch a replay, but we'll have a chance to talk about it, of course, and that's the big event. But what is the buzz for Fury Wilder where you're at here in the UK? Because Fury is more, he's a gypsy. He's not even, I don't think, associated much to Ireland, even though maybe would be a bit more Ireland than the.
Well, he's from Manchester, just down the road. He's from Manchester, so.
But he's never really identified himself, though, the Manchester way as a Ricky Hatton or others.
No.
You know, he's much more, like he says, he's a traveling fighter. He calls himself the Gypsy King, meaning that he's been from one area to the next, right? So I don't know. Have you heard a lot of buzz, or were people asking you about Fury Wilder even into the lead up of the Joshua Usyk fight?
No, I can't say that I really talked to anybody about that. Most people, are wondering, and I think this is the concern that everybody has, and everyone who's asked me, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And everybody seems to be giving me the same answer. By rights, everybody seems to think that, Fury is supposed to win. By rights, he's supposed to win. But the question seems to be, and the buzz from everybody that I'm talking to is that they don't think he's been serious. They don't think his camp has been well. They don't think he's got, and he keeps, denouncing that, saying, no, he's been in training.
Yeah.
Constantly, so it's difficult to say. I have faith in Sugar Hill.
I haven't seen Sugar Hill all week, though.
No, we have not.
I wonder what's good. We saw him much more to the lead up before the fight got postponed due to COVID, at least officially and everything. So that was a good point. Also, I noticed that I haven't seen or heard from Sugar much at all this week, but Fury, of course, has been extremely vocal. But some people, like you mentioned, David Hay today is saying that he thinks that Fury is kind of compensating with his arrogance and his confidence, but that he's taken this a lot less seriously than Deontay Wilder. And today at the weigh-ins, both men weighed in the career heaviest, but Wilder, he said even after the loss that he was going to bulk up, that was part of the game plan. Like he was a massive, 238 pounds officially, but mostly muscular, bench pressing, all that weight stuff, training that he did, compared to always being a lean, tall, lean fighter. Fury.
You mean Wilder? You said Fury.
Yes.
Wilder,
100%.
Yeah.
Fury, on the other hand, he weighed in at 277, which is his biggest in his third fight of Wilder, and you would think he would be even better shape compared to the first fight after taking 3 years off. And he kept his shirt on for the weigh-in, never took it off. We're obviously going to see him without a shirt in the fight. But, how much of that do you put into a factor where you may think that the Fury extra weight or Wilder extra weight, do you think that makes a difference for either fighter, the way, the weigh-in today and the results?
Look, I've never thought about the weigh-in, giving me the answer to the fight. I remember when Buster Douglas came in so obesely heavy against Evander Holyfield, I knew he was leaving his title on the scale. That was one time everybody knew, But I'm not like one of these guys. Oh, he didn't look right. Oh, he didn't stare. He did the stare down wrong. Oh, his eyes broke first. I don't look into any of that because I know that there's nothing factual about that. Every guys hide things in different ways. I am concerned.
So Russ, just hold your thought for a second. We saw it with Andy Ruiz in the rematch against Joshua after he talked about how much he was going to slim down, and the results were not there. He actually came in heavier. That was a red flag, and he ended up losing decisively to Joshua. When Pacquiao fought De La Hoya, I remember De La Hoya looking so drained that you said to yourself, "This is not." So at times it has maybe kind of leaned your prediction a certain way.
You point out two very good examples. In general, I'm wary about people who think they discovered the secret to what was going to happen in the fight by how the face-off went and how the weights went. Like that. That bothers me. And especially now in the heavyweight division, it's different because in other weights they have to make their weight. You know what I mean? They have to make their weight, so it's hard to tell what the guy made the weight. He made weight. But with De La Hoya, the case wasn't making weight; it's what he didn't gain the next day. That was the problem with De La Hoya.
Okay, now, but what does concern you now about the Wilder Fury? You're saying something did concern you from the weigh-in.
Well, I think Wilder did the right thing about bulking up a little bit and getting, stronger. but those muscles require oxygen. Okay. One of the things, and I can tell you this as a fact from working with Wilder for the years that I was with him, one of the things that was extremely deceiving about him was his speed. People couldn't really translate his speed that he had on videotape and watching him on TV. When you were in the ring with him, it was fast, and he was exceptionally fast and powerful for a heavyweight. I'm worried if he gave that away, trying to match size with Wilder and with Fury. And I think Wilder in his upper body was already big enough. If there was any place he needed to put weight on or strength, would have been in his legs, because his upper body is massive, you know, like he's really big. So I hope this doesn't take away the speed factor from him. And Fury was very nimble and light and looked so much better the second fight, and he looked slower the first fight than he did in the second fight. I hope this doesn't make him carry even more excess weight, and if he ends up tiring himself out and be susceptible to the Wilder right hand, that could be problematic, because I don't care who it is, if Wilder nails you with that shot, you know, he's going to hurt him. And the thing that the difference in the second fight as opposed to the first fight was that Fury got to Wilder both with his hands and with his body. You know, he got to him both with his hands and with his body. So I think that this is going to be something that'll be important, that he nails Wilder early, hits him again, hurts him, shakes him. If he just kind of like tries to bide his time and let Wilder get confident, Wilder starts wanting to throw back, this could be problematic. Keeping Wilder on his heels, having him back up, getting hit with shots. Every time he tried to do something, he gets hit, gets wrestled on, gets pushed, gets punched. That's going to be a problem for Wilder. If he doesn't do that, he's going to let Wilder into the fight.
And what about Malik Scott entering the picture now? There's been back and forth talks of Malik Scott, whether or not that makes a difference. It's tough to say. Look, you had a lot of respect for Mark Breland. And we know we both felt that it was unfair completely. The criticism Breland received from Wilder from throwing in the towel in the Fury rematch, that Wilder was being dominated. And in some ways, it helps maybe Wilder's confidence now, but he goes into the third fight saying, hey, I was still up. You didn't knock me out. It's my trainer who threw in the towel. I was still up. Now he's with Malik Scott, who you know extremely well from having been with Malik Scott in his corner, from having Malik involved in training camps with Wilder. We know Malik is a student of the game. Fury dismisses it, saying Malik was a non-credible heavyweight, so he's having a non-credible heavyweight train Wilder, so it's not a good combination. What do you think you can see any changes from Malik working with Wilder? Will it be mental? What type of changes can we see from him?
Yes, I do. Yes, I can. Yes, I do. Yes to all of the above. I like Malik. I think Malik he's a student of the game. He understands things. He breaks things down. You watch him. I've seen him study fighters. I see him study fights. He looks for the subtleties. He sees the subtleties in the ring of fighters. And this is a great, great tool. He sees things that not many trainers, fighters, anybody sees. He sees boxing from a different perspective, from an eye that I can relate to, and I think that's going to be massive. The important thing is, does Wilder listen? I think he will. I think he's got his ear. Can he execute it? Yes, he should be able to. There's things that, you know, what will happen when he gets hit. There's a few things that we don't know the answer to, of what will happen to this game plan once there's a few bumps in the road. But I like Malik Scott, and I think that, you know, if there is a chance for Wilder to win, he's given himself as good a chance as any with Malik in there. If anybody's going to be critical of Malik, I think it will be grossly unfair to do so, because he knows the game, he knows the heavyweight division. So he didn't become heavyweight champion of the world. That's true, but he knows the game. Just because he didn't doesn't mean he can't teach. He can't show it. He can't show what he can do.
And Russ, isn't it usually the opposite? I mean, it's kind of a stupid argument saying, well, you have to have had a world champion as a coach, because many of the best fighters of all time don't end up being very good trainers. They don't have necessarily the patience, because they used to be able to do what they're trying to teach to somebody, but it was easy for them. So it's a bit more difficult for them to teach it. And when you look at the great trainers in history, many of them did not have, they had pedestrian pro careers in some cases. Others were top amateur careers. It wasn't always even to the extent of even being a top competitor. You have a few exceptions, of course, where you have, a Buddy McGirt who's a Hall of Fame fighter, Hall of Fame trainer, but most of the time you don't see that. People love Freddie Roach, and deservedly so, for a lot of the offensive praise and the work he did with Pacquiao. He did not have a great pro career. Correct. So the thing of Malik Scott, he was still a top contender at one point. So I think whether or not Malik Scott is a good coach, to me, has nothing to do with whether or not he was an excellent, fighter in the ring.
He's a student of the game. I promise you that. He's a student of the game. He knows fighters. He knows styles. He understands subtleties. He knows what to look for. He sees things, like he breaks things down. He really does see it. He's one of the few humans I know who can look at boxing and say, yeah, sees this, sees that, sees how they do this. He gets it. Whether he can teach it is still yet to be determined, but he himself sees it. And he's a good communicator. He knows how to get across. I saw an interview with him today regarding the Mark Breland incident. And his defense of what happened was admirable in at least its communication on saying why they felt, that why Wilder fired Breland, even though everybody thinks Breland did the right thing. He explained it to say, it wasn't a group decision. It wasn't like he turned to JD's and say, Jay, should I stop the fight? Jay, I'm going to stop the fight. He did it all on his own. He pulled the trigger on his own, not part of a team decision, et cetera, et cetera. You can say, well, he's the head coach. He has the right to do so. That's, from the outside, that's true. But when you've been in the camp, that that's not the case, because it's a group thing that happened when we were there. Even when I was there, it was all three of us would talk, and
including JD's.
Right. Of course, including JD. So I think, and what impressed me with that, whether you agree with it or not, was his ability in communicating that. He's a great communicator. He understands the game. I think he has gained, if Deontay has put any hopes on his side, Malik might be that one hope.
Interesting. Now, there's other topics that I want to get to about this fight. One of them being that JD's, who was in camp and in the corner, and as well in the locker room, while Fury was getting his hands wraps for the fights and kind of seeing if there was any controversy or not, this has reemerged. It was originally brought up by Wilder, of course, not long after him losing to Fury, and him make that video on Instagram. That was kind of bizarre. It was the first time we had heard Wilder after his loss. He had talked about how Fury was cheating with loaded gloves, and at one point also the palming of the gloves. Can you explain? You've talked a little bit about it before, but do you think it's any possibility that something like that could have gone down with JD's observing Fury, or even the commission? Or do you think does it bother you that Wilder is still bringing this up, that he really believes Fury cheated and he might think Fury's going to try to cheat again?
Look, it's not impossible to cheat. I don't think there will be any possibility of cheating in the actual hand wrap going on the hands. I don't think that that's an issue. I think with Jay there, with the commission there, I don't think that's a possibility. Afterwards, anything is possible. Anything could be possible. What could be slid into the glove, slid out of the glove, how his hand was in the glove. There's all these things that are not impossible, but right now they're only accusational. There's no facts. There's no proof of it. I find it hard to believe that this could be something that happened. But as a fight guy, I'm telling you, anything is possible. Wilder has accused him, if I'm not mistaken, of using egg weights. They're called egg weights. Have you heard that?
Okay, go ahead.
And it's a little ball like this that you would carry in your hand. Now, that could easily have been slid into the glove if that was there. There's nothing to say that it couldn't be, and no one would catch you doing it. It would be relatively easy to do. You'd be at a risk of getting caught if they came time to cut the gloves off or whatever. All these things are possible. There's just no substance for that now. Wilder is convinced that this is what he saw. And I think Wilder is also of the opinion he's convinced himself that he was not beaten fairly. So he still has the confidence about him that you cheated. That's why you beat me. And this time we're going to watch you. You know, we're going to make sure that there's no problem with the gloves. You know, we're going to make sure there's no problem with the wrap, because he believes that they cheated. So anything that might have shattered his ego or shaken his confidence has been probably reduced now, because he believes that Fury cheated.
And do you think Fury, by doubling down and throughout this week saying I'm going to cheat again, is a good mind game to have, or it's irrelevant?
I don't know.
Because that's what he said. He said clearly in many interviews, "Don't worry, I cheated. I'm going to cheat again." Clearly, to me, it seemed like want to play in his head of Wilder. But at the same time, can you explain again for those of you, because this was a podcast months and months ago, where you kind of explain what Wilder accused Fury of doing in the first fight, where he kind of pulls his hand and hits with the side of the hand, because obviously with your experience in wrapping and in gloves, people are not necessarily sure how to follow with that logic. So can you explain what he means?
Basically, you put your hand in the glove like this. Your thumb is in the glove and your hand is in the compartment, right, like this. It is possible to pull the thumb out and make a fist inside the glove like this, so where the rest of the glove could be flippy floppy. You know what I mean? That you're making a fist inside the palm area. So your thumb is in fact not in the thumb of the glove, and your fingertips are not in the fingertip part of the glove. They're removed and they're rolled inside the palm of the hand. It is possible to do that. To what degree? I guess if you slap on the inside, I could only see you potentially hurting your hand. I don't see how that becomes a benefit, but this is what the accusations are. So as crazy as it might sound, but it's possible.
And do you think then some commissions, for sure, I don't know if all, but may need sometimes to have kind of more discussions, more education on the possibilities and the things that can happen cheating? Do you think they're all equipped to catch those type of things going on?
They're not. They worry about all the wrong things. And I've talked to various commissions about this. It's, you don't ask a layman to try to catch a magician doing tricks, because the layman doesn't know. You need to have another magician catch the magician doing the tricks and the sleight of hand. That's the guy who's going to catch him. I think the athletic commissions, I don't think solicit enough from the boxing world, the people who are in the corners, and what to look for and how you could get by in cheating things. And they look for stuff that's irrelevant. They're more concerned about how much Vaseline you use than anything else, as if Vaseline is some magic potion that's going to prevent you from getting hit, because as soon as you put it on, the punch doesn't hurt anymore. It just slides off as if nothing's there. That's almost the mindset that they have. Hey, you got too much Vaseline on there. Take some of that Vaseline off. My question has always been why? What benefit is it to the opponent if you have a glob of Vaseline over your eye? Because the only person that could really hurt is you. It doesn't hurt your opponent, but they get paranoid about this kind of stuff, So, guys are beating I've said this before, guys are beating the heck out of each other with baseball bats in the ring, and you're worried about Vaseline, So sometimes I think they look for the wrong things.
No, it's a good point. Fury, if he were to go into this fight, does he have to change anything from the second fight in terms of game plan? You think, as you kind of briefly alluded on, he should attack Wilder from the get-go? Because many expect this to be a knockout, and Fury seems to be very confident. I don't think it's just words, that this is going to be probably the most violent encounter of the three matchups. Because the first one was a bit of a cat and mouse game, with Fury outboxing and just moving all the time, frenetic, and then Wilder at the end knocking him down, the dramatic moment. And then the rematch, Fury kind of took his time in the first 2 rounds or so, but then it wasn't long till he pressed, and Wilder didn't seem to have many solutions. So do you think it's a copy paste, or does he have to prepare for something different?
Well, I think he has to prepare for something a little bit different. But again, I think the main thing is preparing for that right hand. That's the killer. That's the killer shot. Okay, you want to prepare for that. But if he is only concentrating again, like he did the first time, on just defending and moving and staying away from trouble, it could lead to trouble. And that's what he changed the second fight. That's where Sugar Hill, I think, played a big role in saying, you know, we're going to bully him now. We're the bigger guy. We're going to move him back. I think he has to do that again. I don't think there's any way he should let Wilder get comfortable and confident in there. I really believe that he needs to let him, you know, be the big man. Let the big man know, let the other man know you're the big man and you're going to bully him around. You're going to punch him. You're going to push him. You're going to move him back. And you're going to end up smothering him as well, to not give him that range to find that right hand or the left hook to set up the right hand. You don't want to give him that range. You want stuff coming at him all the time where he just can't get those shots off. And by the time he does, you're here or you're there and none of the punches have any impact. I think that's the key thing for Fury.
Do you have any contact to this day with the Wilder camps or people from the Wilder camp? Have you spoken to them recently, of late, or are you pretty out of touch?
I speak to Jay all the time, but we don't discuss this stuff. Like, it's not, I don't find it respectful for me to turn around and discuss these things with him. You know, we're friends and I like to keep it that way. So I don't discuss what goes on in the camp, and I don't want ever for him to think that, you know, our friendship or confidence or his confidence in me has ever been betrayed if he was to say something to me and then it got out for whatever reason and he thinks I did it. So, you know, no, I don't talk to him about it.
Right. One thing we did see in the videos that have been emerging, that Wilder and Malik Scott have kind of set up camp for months and months now in this big, you know, range or wherever the heck they were. Pardon me. It was like they were renting an Airbnb for months on end. And so they had a whole training camp set up.
I think that was at Wilder's house.
It was at his home. So they made a big backyard setup.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, there you go. And Malik in the videos seems to be doing a lot more body work or body punches that I've seen videos of Wilder in training before, but you don't always see everything, the videos that get shown. So do you think that that's something Wilder can improve on, and it could be a big, you know, difference? Because I don't recall, unless you can tell me otherwise, was his body work something that he really put a lot of focus in when you were with him because of his height and his reach? It seemed to me like he was mostly a headhunter.
Yeah, it wasn't a big factor for him. He did throw some body shots, but nothing like he probably should have. And I think it stands to reason. And this is why I say, you know, Malik is a student of the game. You're looking at a guy 6'9", 277 pounds. That's a big target there. There's some body to hit. You know what I mean? There's some body to hit.
Right.
So and Wilder can hurt you to the body. So I think mixing the attack up between the body and head will only help to keep Tyson a little bit confused, and has to be a benefit for Wilder to be able to hit such a big target anywhere he can, just to keep him in the range that you're hitting him, whether it's the body, the arms, side of the head, whatever. He has to keep doing that. If he just keeps looking for the headshot and Fury's rolling and moving and then stepping this way, stepping that way, and you're only looking to land the one shot, that could be terrible. And I think that's what happened the second fight. You know, Wilder suddenly was like, oh, he's coming, and now he's looking for the one shot. You know, he wants to land that one shot. And I don't think that's going to be the smart way to do it. I think he has to land an abundance of punches, which could culminate with a right hand, and that could hurt Fury.
Do you think Usyk will be watching the fight Saturday, Russ, or do you think he'll just see the result? And how much do you think Usyk is going to be intrigued in watching this fight?
I don't know. Like, what time will it be there? It'll be early morning there. So I don't know.
No, but has he spoken, like, because you spoke a little bit with him, you told me last week after the fight.
I did.
Was the subject ever brought up about, hey, the next one is this?
No.
All right.
No. And you know what? In this day and age now, it used to be where you needed to watch the fight, because if you didn't watch a fight, it could be months before you were able to get your hands on a tape or whatever of seeing it. Now you're going to be able to see the fight in its entirety practically the next day. You know, someone will have it posted somewhere that you'll be able to see it, you know. So I don't think it's of a vital concern that he needs to see it immediately. But I'm sure he's going to be very interested in the result.
Although it looks like the Joshua rematch will happen first, regardless of who wins between Fury Wilder. But we know in boxing, stranger things have happened.
Well, not only will the rematch happen first, but I just heard that the WBC has ordered that the winner must sign within 30 days to fight Dillian White.
They want to make it as difficult as possible to get unified champions, the sanctioning bodies. Does it seem like it?
Here's the other thing that's wrong. Dillian White has to fight Otto Whalen first.
Correct.
So how are you saying you have to make a decision in 30 days fight? He hasn't even fought Wallen yet. Wallen is in an elimination fight now. If he wins, technically he should be the guy, the next guy in line for the shot. You know, like it's almost a preconceived notion that Wallen's gonna lose to Dillian White.
Or they feel it's because Dillian White, they've owed him that shot for years and years now. They've been dragging along that title shot.
Yeah, well, I don't think they owe him anything, but anyways.
Yeah, that's for sure. And what about so we look at the landscape of the heavyweight division. People look at Fury as saying that he has the intangibles and the makeup to have been a difficult heavyweight for any era. He could have competed against anyone, not necessarily beaten the best. But do you think there's a possibility that some say because Fury, since his return, which is only 3 years ago in 2018, he's barely fought anybody other than Wilder, that we haven't yet seen the best Fury because he's more dedicated than ever, so he says. Do you think it's possible we haven't seen the best Tyson Fury just yet?
I think we've seen a pretty darn good look at the best. You know, I don't see him.
You don't think he can improve from the rematch? You don't think he can do a better performance than the rematch?
Yeah, but it's going to be little improvements. You know, I mean, it'll be subtle improvements. I don't think he's going to go to. I don't think it's going to be an improvement like. Say the Canelo that fought Liam Smith as opposed to the Canelo that fought Triple G.
Yeah.
Massive difference, right? Or the Canelo that's fought Billy Joe Saunders is a massive difference between the two. I don't think we'll see that kind of a difference.
No. All right. And do you think?
But if you look at Fury like now, or let's say the Wilder fight or whatever, compared to when he started his career, compared to the Fury that fought Steve Cunningham, you know, that's been a massive improvement. So I don't think at this point you're going to get another massive improvement. You're going to get better. You're going to get wiser. You're going to get more experience, you know, but yeah, I think this is the best we've seen of him.
And Wilder, the thing is that he came in such a raw talent, right? Started so late, was still able to get a bronze medal in the Olympics. And many people felt that technically he had started to make improvements. Then sometimes it seemed like he regressed a little bit back to his power ways, his Wilder ways. Do you think that if Malik somehow in the combination works better, that there's possibility that a Wilder can be a better version than he's ever been as a heavyweight?
Well, not that he's ever been, but he can. I think he was better before. I think he was more technically sound before, you know, and he paid attention to his boxing skills. And I think Malik could be the guy to bring that back.
All right. Do you have anything else from this bout? Do you think we should allude to? I think, you know, is there anything that you feel about this fight that needs to be discussed?
The one thing I'd like to say is that everyone was saying we shouldn't be making this fight. We don't need a third fight. And yet the interest now has peaked immensely that no one is really sure. But it just goes to show you how history has been derailed in that we were this close to having an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Fury was supposed to fight Joshua. This was now, thankfully for my guy, it didn't happen. You know, my guy becomes champion as a result of that. But the belts are still fragmented to a degree, but it creates interest, and I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts boxing in any way. It's only going to make more interest should the winner of Fury and Wilder now fight Usyk at some point in the future. But right now, Usyk's got to get by the rematch. We're going to see another Anthony Joshua, an Anthony Joshua who has proven to be successful and smart and adaptable in the rematch. So, you know, we're going to see a different Anthony Joshua. I think that's going to be interesting as well. You know, people are saying, oh, masterclass performance by Usyk. Yes, it was. But the rematch, everyone's going to buckle down again because we don't know what Anthony Joshua is going to show up. So nothing is for sure. And all the people who said, oh, we don't need this fight, maybe we didn't, but it's going to generate revenue. Both guys are going to get paid, and no one knows who's going to win yet.
I don't see personally the fight ending in any way, whether it's Fury or Wilder. I don't see the fight happening where there's a conclusion that doesn't end in some sort of knockout or technical knockout for either man. Do you think the fight ends in a knockout?
Yeah, I don't see it going 12 rounds. I could be wrong, unless Fury is not prepared. I believe Wilder is ultimately prepared. Unless Fury is not prepared and Wilder starts to get to him and starts to hit him, and Fury can't execute what he wants to, and then starts to use his mass and size to grab, hold, make it a wrestling match, without being offensive and trying to win, just defending himself, if you will, that I could see going the distance, and it would be a decision for Wilder. Fury, I think if he does what he's supposed to do, I think he will get to Wilder enough to stop it.
There seems to be a lot of animosity now. I mean, I know they're trying, of course, part of this is that they know pay-per-views are at stake. They know money is at stake. So it's always better to hype up interest and to seem legitimate animosity. But sometimes I'm concerned that something could get a little crazy tomorrow night when they're in the dressing rooms with the wrappings after the fight, depending on how it ends. Like the two camps, I don't know. I think that's something that I just hope we've had a great. This is a different contrast than what we saw with Usyk and Joshua, of course. Gentlemen in the ring, gentlemen in the fight, after the fight. And this one here, you could see we've seen some ugliness, of course, beforehand. We might see some ugliness in the locker rooms, in the build-up before, and who knows during the fight if it gets ugly. The other thing is, the fouling. The referee is going to have to be very active and very aware, I think, with those two men, especially on the inside.
For sure, and there's no referee that's as big as either one of these guys. So it's a hard thing to do. It's going to be hard. It could end up being a hard fight to control. But you know what? I can see all potential outcomes happening, and that's why I say I think the interest is still there, despite the two previous results. I still think there's interest in the division, and how can you not be interested in two giants like these guys getting into a ring when we never know what could happen in a boxing ring?
Yeah, there's two things that are really fun. I think the fact that the heavyweight division has gained momentum the last few years, where the big heavyweight fights matter again, and that's good for boxing. There's also the undercard of the Joshua Usyk card was excellent, and I like this card a lot. When you look at some of the undercards, they put out their heavyweight prospects, whether it's F.A. Ajagba versus Frank Sanchez. You're going to have even veterans, decent contenders, and Kowanicki against Hellenius. And then you have other prospects like Jared Anderson. You have the guy Edgar Berlanga that everybody wants to see. Can he continue his massive knockout streak? Our guy Robsy Ramirez is fighting at the lower weight classes. So to me, that's a very good card from top to bottom that Top Rank and PBC have been able to put together. And in large part, you saw Bob Arum this week. Him and his enthusiasm for the sport hasn't drifted, of course, huh?
At all. I always wonder, though. I guess it's good for the fighters to be on this type of a stage, but in a way I feel bad for them, because I can assure you the majority of this undercard will be fought in front of this many people.
It's the streaming more. Like a lot of people are tuning in. The hardcore fans, at least, are tuning into the beginning of the card.
I don't think there's maybe. I mean, I like to consider myself hardcore, but sometimes you think, let's get these preliminaries out of the way and get to the main event.
I'm interested. I'm really interested for this undercard. I'll be tuning in pretty much from beginning to end. It's going to be a big boxing evening. Other topics that we'll be able to get to as you return next week. We'll have different topics, different guests. There's just one thing also that I wanted to maybe get your take, because it's been announced or on the verge of being announced, and it's relevant, I should say, because it's with Tyson Fury being his half brother Tommy Fury, who's a heavyweight prospect. Looks like he's going to fight Jake Paul next. Just at a glance, does Jake Paul went from fighting, no names to then NBA player, who's a professional athlete but a non-fighter, to then fighting a MMA guy who had zero striking skill, to then an over the hill MMA fighter with some striking skill in Tyron Woodley. Now he's going to an actual professional boxer, but a prospect who doesn't have an extensive amateur career and only has a few bouts in the heavyweight division. Do you think now that's the one for sure? It's a definite loss for Jake Paul. Do you have even an opinion on this matchup?
Is this the same thing that I saw where he challenged him and said he'll give him an extra $500,000? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, probably maybe. I mean, the extra $500,000 for what? Because he's also offered him first class tickets. He's he's making fun of him. There was build up because Tommy Fury fought on the undercard of Jake Paul's last bout, and Tommy Fury did not look great despite getting the win. And Jake Paul seems to be confident this is going to be his first win against a real pro boxer who's about his size.
and Fury said, I accept. He said he had to, like Jake Paul said, you have to, if you lose, you have to change your name for a year or something like that.
Something stupid like that.
Stupid like that. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, the same thing. As far as I know, Tommy Fury said, send the contract. Let's
No, but I'm saying, what do you think, Tommy? Do you think Tommy Fury, because he's a pro boxer but with limited experience, do you think now that makes it a sure win? And bye-bye, Jake Paul, we're going to be over. The Jake Paul phase is over. Or do you think, again, Jake Paul might have chose a smart opponent here in facing a guy like Tommy Fury instead of a top experienced pro boxer?
Matthew, I don't know, because I haven't seen Jake Paul. Forget about seeing him in the fight against inadequate opposition. I haven't seen him in the gym. I haven't seen him training. I haven't seen what he looks like in doing what he, because I'll tell you what, if he's looking good in the gym and you're seeing stuff, you could say, okay, we can put him in with this guy. But I don't know. I mean, technically, no, he shouldn't be. Technically, Tommy should be the guy that is a real fighter and should be the guy to expose it. But I don't know what this guy's been doing, and that's what seems to be the hype, that he believes he can do this. So is this just a money thing? I don't know.
Well, okay. The last thing I'll ask you about this is, if Jake Paul somehow even competes, wins against a guy like Tommy Fury, does it mean he's a real fighter and we can stop now dissing him, and the pro boxing crowd needs to start taking him seriously?
Well, but define taking him seriously. Like, are you saying
meaning that he's not just trying to crash the sport, but this is a guy who actually may be a real fighter who just had an unconventional way of doing it, instead of just being a YouTube star who's just trying to invade the sport like some other freak shows we've seen?
That's what we're going to find out, isn't it? If he fights Tommy Fury, then he's got to fight somebody next. He's going to, at some point in every fighter in their career, at some point, they hit the wall. As bad as you are, at some point you hit the wall. For some guys, it happens in their first fight. They hit the wall, it's done. For some guys, it's in the first time they fight an 8-rounder. They hit the wall, it's done. Some guys, they get to a 10-rounder, they hit the wall. Eventually, you hit the wall. Where will Jake Paul hit the wall? That's what you find out in boxing. So we'll find out when he fights Tommy. We'll see. And the same thing for Tommy. At some point, you hit the wall.
All right. I just know this. Like, we've been able to defend the fact that he's fought MMA guys, and so we say, listen, it's its own event. It's a real boxing fight.
Correct.
But if he beats Tommy Fury, or even looks very challenging to a professional fighter in Tommy Fury, a real boxer, despite the limited experience, I'm not so sure this will be a good look for us. I'm talking, when I mean us, I mean the people who are in the sport for years and years, who really follow it, who really care about the sport, because it's going to lead to more and more outsiders saying this is an easy sport to do.
Well, they can come and find out. They can come and find out if it's easy.
No, but you can't have the guy from the Garage League challenge the Pittsburgh Penguins and have a chance of beating them.
Correct.
But if this is happening,
he's not challenging the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's challenging Tommy Fury. If you turned around and said he wanted to fight Jared Anderson, then he's crazy. That's suicidal.
So that's what I'm saying. Jake Paul is so smart in the type of matchmaking he's doing by choosing a guy like Tommy Fury.
Yeah, but why isn't that different from anybody else who has a prospect coming up? You don't put him in with.
That's his argument. That's his argument. That's what he says. And he says he's been matched up tougher than Tommy Fury has for Tommy Fury's limited experience.
Maybe. I think that's a little unfair to expect that just because the guy's running his mouth off and getting paid a lot of money that he's generating. We can't say he's stealing the money. He's generating it. You can't turn around and say that he's not fighting. He's not doing anything different than any manager and promoter would do with any prospect that they have, in moving their guy, making the right matches, building him up. Same thing. They're not doing anything different. And if he does happen to be able to pull off a win against Fury, and then fights the next guy, and he moves to 15-0, they would have done nothing different than you would do with any other guy who even had an extensive amateur career. You'd be building him up and getting him the wins. They're not doing anything different.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Anber? You're just getting late. You finished your snooker hall playing evening. Anything else to report? You got to rest up now for the big fight tomorrow.
Big fight tomorrow, but even more important is I have to be up at 9:15 for my COVID test. I am not happy.
How many COVID tests have you experienced since the beginning of the pandemic?
I've lost count. I've lost count.
So So that means there's a nap after the COVID test, correct?
No, there better be a nice long one. There better be.
How's Roy doing? Roy Jones, I know you've been able to see a lot in the UK.
Good. I got to see him when we were in London, and it was great to see him. I look forward to seeing him. We got some fighters we're going to be working with, so I'm happy about that. I always love being around Roy.
Yeah,
Roy
perfect.
and Buddy, two of my favorite guys in the game.
Awesome. And you'll be back in Canada next week, correct?
Correct. Monday.
Perfect. So we look forward to seeing you, Mr. Anber. Look forward to seeing you at the office, and look forward to doing the podcast from our regular locations and a regular time next week.
Matt, you got it, brother. Thank you very much. It was fun. I'll be home soon.
All right, perfect. Enjoy the fights, everyone, and thank you for tuning in again to another edition of Calling Russ Anber. You got Russ.
See you.